Greetings and welcome to the Pride of Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, Archon, and today I'm meeting with Starfleet Region 7, and we're here to honor one of its commanders. First, we'll start with introductions. Admiral Vossler, can you care to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
I have been a member of Starfleet since 1982, which makes me kind of ancient. And I've been, next year will be my 40th year. Oh my God. And my chapter, the USS Challenger, based in this Jersey Shore, has been around for over 30 years. In 2023 will be 35 years old, which again makes me feel very ancient because I've been the CO that entire time. I have enjoyed Star Trek fandom and have had the opportunity to do a variety of different things, attend different events, meet wonderful people, interview some of the celebrities over the years, many actually. It's brought me into a wonderful Star Trek community that has always kept me laughing, having fun, scratching my head. And we've had some dramas, we've had some wonderful times, and I can't think of my life without all the experiences that I've had. And of course, it's brought me together with the love of my life, who just had her birthday yesterday. So I'm very happy. Yeah, Emily just went upstairs, but I will convey that. She's my right arm, and she's just wonderful. And I wouldn't have met her if not through a convention shore leave and through Starfleet. So that's just one of the wonderful things that this organization's brought me. So and meeting people that like yourself, and the wonderful opportunity that you've availed me to through resurrecting Spaced Out into a monthly program as a podcast. So I appreciate that.
Now we can have discussions about bringing it to Zoom as soon as I master
yeah.
more. we can put video in it as well. Thank you. And Bob, I've known you for a very long time. You're an awesome individual. I thought so in the 80s, and I think so still.
You too.
Today, and I'm greatly honored that we're still interacting after all these years.
Absolutely. It's great to work with you. And
Same here. Anne Marie, you've been on Bob's show. You have hosted your own Spaced Outs. And can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. I am in Star Trek world. I am a commander on the USS Britannic out of Long Island. In real life, I'm a peer support specialist, which means I help people with mental illness. It's a very fulfilling thing. But in Star Trek, I can't even remember how long. It's not as long as Bob, but I was in chapters in Iowa and in South Carolina. So I've been kind of chapter hunting, but now I'm at a home chapter. And I just enjoy it so much. And like you said, this has brought us all together, and I'm very, very happy about that. Continues to bring me blessings.
And I know Bob has also worked in libraries, and he's a journalist, and so he's been in a position where he's helped people. And I found that very much when working with the Starfleet folks, that a lot of them in their non-Starfleet lives do things to help people or to inform people. So thank you for doing all that you do for our communities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And before we get to our guest of honor today, Wayne Augustin, who could not join us today, assigned Admiral Vossler to share with us a little bit about the history of Region 7.
We've been around for quite a long time. I can remember before I joined in 1982, but I remember that back then we didn't have the same structure. We were actually like the Northeast area, and then we had the regional structure, and New England was actually part of us up until 1994, I want to say, because I know that distinctly, because in 1993 the Region 7 held its very first regional conference. Not to say that we weren't a region before that, but I think that really kicked us off as, more organized, more unified. And we just, it was the days really before online. And, to the extent that we are now, and we got to see each other. And it was held in good old Seaside Heights, my home, my home next to my home, one town over. And we had a blast. And my hope is to bring the conference back there for its 30th anniversary in 2023. That's my hope. I hope that's possible. But we invaded the Hershey Motel, and we had people from way upstate New York. I think it was the Albany. A woman came dressed as an Orion slave girl, and I'll never forget, we had a parade on the boardwalk of Seaside Heights, and the mayor, coincidentally, Mayor Hershey, who, owned the Hershey Motel. So he was thrilled because, we put money in his pocket because it was in the fall, it was off season. And I'll never forget getting the picture of him looking at this scantily clad Orion slave girl. And he just said, "I think you came a long distance to be here." But we had a blast, and it really brought us all together. And like I said, New England was well represented at that time before they spun off later and became Region 18, I believe. And that kind of started the tradition as far as the regular conferences. Many other regions call them summits, but Region 7 always bucks the trend, and we set the trend instead. And we call it a conference, just like the international conference. And so ours is a regional, and we've moved it around many times. Mike's ship has hosted it more than once, I believe. Well, I know it's more than once because Justice hosted the very first USO show, which got 3 people in drag wearing a bikini and a basket on their head, and I think I was probably one of those 3 people, as was Alex and Michael Klufas, and we don't need to show any pictures of that, but, because I think Zoom would explode. But it was a lot of fun, and then we've had it. One of the wonderful things, much like our international conference, of having that event being hosted in different cities and different locations, it gives you the flavor of that particular community. So when we kicked it off, it was the Jersey Shore, but we've had it in recent years in North Jersey, in Binghamton, which is a very interesting community, and Maryland, and different parts of Maryland. And it's just been very nice. And then when we don't have any groups that want to undertake the large chore of hosting it, our fallback position is sort of smack in the middle of the region, which is Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And we've been holding the region itself. Staff has been hosting it there, where I believe we are planning to do live next year. We couldn't do it this year because of the darn pandemic. So, but outside of the conference, we represent New Jersey, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York. I did say New Jersey. Washington D.C. I believe is part of us, and Delaware, and and we really have a blast coming together at different conventions like Shore Leave and Farpoint, and of course our conferences and different multi-chapter events that also draw us together. So it's a wonderful community, and we share a lot of laughs, and we've grown up together. Many of us were much younger, as you recall, and and we also interact with other groups outside of Starfleet, like Klingons, as we did with you guys, and other organizations. So it's been very rewarding, and we look forward to getting back to live things as well in the near future.
We're going to be carrying on that tradition here with this podcast, and we're going to be starting with the Pride Landian Empire. Thomas Punton runs that, and he does a lot of in Star Trek type of things with gaming and the online gaming as well.
Cool.
So he'll be joining this adventure. Thank you very much, Bob. That was very informative and filled in a lot of the blanks.
That
And
just
now,
scratches the surface.
oh, this will be a conversation that starts today and will continue. So, and what I plan on doing in future episodes is everybody who participates can give an update on what's going on with their vessel, and this
Oh,
sort of
cool.
information out there, and it'll be another way of promoting what everybody's doing. And I don't know if we were recording, but I mentioned earlier that I'm working with a gaming store in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey, and they're going to carry flyers for what we're doing.
Wonderful.
So people can become aware of it, and I'll be occasionally running in-story games there on the gaming table. So you know, that activity will be starting as soon as the pandemic clears enough for us to do that. Okay, thanks again. And now, without further ado, our guest of honor, Michael Stein. Michael Stein, commanding officer of the USS Justice, who earlier on in this adventure, we actually went to a few of their meetups. I believe it was at least 2, it might have been 3, and we had an awesome time. And then, of course, life intruded, as it often does. And the next thing I know, it's more than half a decade later. So but anyway, here we are. Tell us about yourself. How did your path lead you to Starfleet?
Okay, well, back in April '95, I attended an event that actually was a regional event with the Justice, the Avenger, maybe the Challenger at the Morris County Museum. And the first person I met, believe it or not, was Alex Rosenzweig.
Oh, wow.
Wow. And yeah, that was wild. I met the crew of the USS Justice, got their flyers. And about a month later, I said, oh, this looks interesting. I'm not really doing to it. This was in April, May of '95. And after that, okay, I'll join. I'll see how this is. I mean, I was a Star Trek fan from TOS. So I started that back then. Shortly, I think within a year, I became chief of operations and moved along. In May of 2010, I became the CEO of the USS Justice. So I've been in Starfleet, what, about 26 years, not nearly as long as Bob, but
still, wow.
It's been a while.
It's still a good long run. Yeah.
It's more than a quarter century.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully I don't know if we'll be a CO for a quarter of a century, but the way it's going, I don't know. That's another story. But yeah, I've been in doing that and have a great ship. Cover northern New Jersey. I remember, Bob, you were mentioning about Seaside Heights. I think there was 2 Region 7s. I remember later on there was a Region 7 conference besides '93. I forgot what year. I think it was '05, as a matter of fact.
It was '05. That's right.
Because I remember, because
we brought it back. Yep. Same location.
What you did is you put the logo on a T-shirt. And
yeah.
I think you were the only one that had that. I said, "Oh, that's interesting." I think that I don't know if that was from where you got that from, Vistaprint or some other company, but you were the only one wearing the Region 7 logo on a T-shirt. I said, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the conferences we had modified the Gilligan's Island thing. If you remember that, was that later on at a different event? I don't know.
Oh, I think that was '05. You're talking. That was in Seaside Heights, and that's where I was. And you put the logo on a T-shirt. I said, "Oh, that's really cool."
Yeah.
So I remember that. I don't know about the '93 one. That's before my time. And the USO show, I think, just about preceded my time there too by maybe about 6 months or something. I don't know what year or when or what month.
Yeah, I was RC at the time, so it had to be
94,
90.
Yeah.
No, if you
It was
were
95. So it was just preceded my time shortly on board the Justice, doing that. But it's been fun. Do a lot of different things. So having a blast. We still are having a ship meeting tomorrow, as a matter of fact. One of our second ones are actually our second one in person. We're going back to trying to get back to in-person meetings. That's sort of like a little bit of a struggle. Hopefully it'll work out. I'm hoping.
We had fun when we attended, my wife and I, your in-person meetings.
Yeah, that was a meetup. Yeah. So what we do is we host the meetup, the Star Trek meetup for northern New Jersey, and we've been doing that since '02 when meetups first started. The first CEO of the Justice, Ed Tunis, started doing that in August of '02, and we've been carrying it forward. Every CEO has been doing it since then, and it's a good way to increase our, what would you call, recruiting or something. We get a number of members from that, quite a few. I think we're up to what, 27, or about 27 members now.
Awesome.
So, yeah, and a lot of them through the meetup. They see the meetup. Even my current XO met through Meetup. We got a lot of members through the Meetup, and that goes blankets out throughout all the northern New Jersey. And that's a great way to attract people interested. They type in Star Trek, and our ship comes up right away, and they come meet us. They get to know us, and later on, they need to like us. They join us, and before you know it, they're in Starfleet. So works out very well.
So that brought you in Starfleet, and you remained in Starfleet. Tell us about the USS Justice. What is distinct about the Justice?
Well, what's distinct is we're a Saladin class destroyer. We're a classic ship, a classic. We're based on TOS, so we have one nacelle. And everybody says that doesn't work, but it works for us just fine. So we're quite an active chapter. Just last night, we had a Star Trek physical fitness event at,
awesome.
At a gym in Butler, and a few members attended that. So that was a good workout. So it was a lot of good stretching there. We're planning another, I think, a major event in November to go to the, I don't know if you've been to the American Way Mall.
No.
In Secaucus, we're going to that. There's a big aquarium there, similar to the one in Mall of America in Minnesota. I've been to that when I was at the 2018 IC. So I understand that's similar. It's the same company that runs it. So the aquariums, from what I understand, are similar, but I still like to see this one here in New Jersey. So we're planning an away mission to that in mid-November. So that's looking forward to that. That should be great. And we do a lot of different other things. We have movie nights, different things, like I said, meetings, game nights, gaming events. So it's been a lot of fun. It still is.
And since you're running the meetup for all of northern New Jersey, I'm sure you interact with a lot of the other vessels that are in New Jersey.
Yeah. Well, most of them are like central or southern. I don't know, Bob. I don't think the other ships are running their own meetup that we do. I don't know. I don't think the Challenger does.
No, we tried it, but we didn't get as many people. And what got people caught our interest, or rather they caught our attention, was events that we did at either the library or public events. And we promote our own live meetings that we hold every month, because we're fortunate to be able to have the Seaside Heights Community Center, and that has availed us access to like a kitchen and stuff. And and just on a side note, it's funny that I think it's great that the Justice is doing a physical activities, whereas kind of the stereotype of Starfleet people and fandom in general is that we base more of our events around eating.
Yeah.
So,
well,
I know certainly my chapter does.
I mean, our meetup's at a diner, so every month. Next Tuesday we're meeting at the Park West Diner in Little Falls. So I mean, that's how I met Hercules.
we always joke
dinner.
After every meeting, then the real debate continue, or the real debate goes on as to like, okay, where are we going to go this month? We tried this diner last time. Well, we tried this diner, or
we have to establish priorities, and food is definitely a priority.
Yeah,
especially on our ship, and I'm sure yours and most ships within Starfleet. I haven't seen where it is not. So
yeah.
We definitely take care of that area. But we're getting into physical fitness, and we're planning a lot of different events. We're planning to hopefully do this physical fitness and maybe expand upon that as well. So we're looking at different things, different projects within that as well in the future, which we're going to be discussing.
Mike, was that just something that your chapter decided to engage in, or was this inspired by that Starfleet program through the Assistant Surgeon General's
No,
thing.
no.
Oh, okay.
One of
You
our
came up-
members, one of our members, John Penzino, he is a member of, I think it's Innovative Fitness Solutions in Butler. And he coordinated, I
okay.
guess, with the people up there to take, you rent the whole gym out for us. And so we pay a small fee and we have it to ourselves, to our crew.
Oh, that's so
awesome.
cool.
Yeah,
That is
yeah.
neat.
And so we have our own trainer. We had our own trainer for about, what is it, about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And while we're doing training, we also watch we have an episode of Star Trek playing on the monitors as well.
Oh,
Same time.
wow.
So that's. So it's
That's very innovative. Yeah.
yeah. So we're watching Star Trek while exercising. Yeah.
Wow.
What was the
That is
episode?
awesome.
I forgot the name. It was the episode with they go back in time to and they capture the pilot, and the pilot they go I forgot, a mock time. I think it is. Is it a mock time?
What
They go
time is
back to-
Spock and going to Vulcan?
I
Because
think you're
not
talking about
Vulcan.
tomorrow is yesterday.
Yeah,
Is
tomorrow's
that-
yesterday. Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They go back to Earth in the early '60s or so. And
Yeah.
that's the one. So we're watching that while exercising. So
That
and
is
then it's
neat.
choreographed. The exercises are choreographed. Not maybe that's the right word, but they're synced in terms of which exercise we're doing to the minutes of each segment of the show. So it works out pretty well. So we're exercising and watching Star Trek, and before you know it, the time goes so fast. We're doing this and stretching, and before you
Yeah.
know it, it's like it's over.
That's the thing. Fandom really makes, I've certainly noticed that whenever I do my monthly spaced out, it's like time flies. Hercules introduces us, and then we get John, especially with Anne Marie and I. And then before we know it, Hercules comes back and says, well, thank you very much. It's been almost an hour, and like, wow, where did that time fly?
I know.
It scares the heck out of both of us.
Yeah.
We're so engrossed in our talk.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing. So we create more opportunities to talk.
Mhm.
That's not wrong. That's very creative. I'm the champion of the Tenafly fitness program.
Oh,
So I get involved. There's not much to do now with the pandemic, but before the pandemic, there were lots of activities. And that's very creative, having like a themed exercise session.
yeah. We try to pick an episode, or actually, John picked it this time, and sometimes we vote on which episode do we want to do. But this one he picked, and we'll hopefully have some more. We were doing that before the pandemic, and we sort of stopped it. Obviously, the gym actually was closed for a while, as most gyms were, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's a sort of a bummer. But we picked it up, and so hopefully we'll be doing that more frequently and everything, and it'll work out really well. Looking forward to that.
Now, I was going to suggest that we find like charitable things to do. And so I have some ideas after listening to Michael. First of all, I know that you've worked in libraries, Bob. And so you have a long history with libraries. And I also am involved with libraries. I'm the president of the Cresskill Friends. And I've been involved with that library since 2014. So I want to put on the table that collectively, we do something for our local library, and I'm sure you're already doing something for your local library, and also something revolving around fitness, and it could be physical fitness or mental fitness or any type of fitness. But this way we can give updates on that activity as well as our journey progresses.
Well, one this month is, I don't know if your area community passed a proclamation honoring the Friends of Libraries, but this is the month for that. Some of the towns that I cover in my current job had the proclamation out, so I remember writing that up and them basically thanking friends groups like yours who work to support their local libraries with projects and funding, and so that they have the resources they need to do the programming. Unfortunately, my local library system, and I think this is probably the case for most library systems right now, is that even though we're kind of getting out of the pandemic, we're still, there's still concerns. There's not as much programming going on. I don't know if
Right.
you guys are back to doing live programming. We are
Yes,
not.
we are.
No,
We're not back, but we have minimal programming, but like in this big auditorium where we used to have our meetings, and
Mhm.
I used to have all sorts of meetings there, everything from helping people with employability to hunting UFOs. I was a frequent presenter. Now they're only letting 10 people maximum in that whole room.
Mm. Oh,
So
wow.
they have activity.
Yeah.
They're held back. The kids' activities they're doing outside. So
Well,
as
that's
the weather
cool.
gets colder, it's not going to be possible to, to have activities outside. But as soon as they're open up again, I'm going to be holding the vessel meetings there, and
Mhm.
we're going to be recording it and putting it on Zoom later on, and then setting up a GoFundMe or something so that people, if they want to contribute toward our STEM, they can contribute easily. So that's
Oh,
the
cool.
idea.
That's a nice idea. It's innovative.
So what do you guys think of it? Anne Marie, Michael, what do you think of it?
sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea also, and excuse the parrot in the background, but
That's
can't
okay.
help some things. Yeah, I think it's a very good idea. I know the Mental Health Association of New Jersey, which is where I work, had just finished an online walk because we couldn't do
Cool.
it. We usually do it in Seaside, but they're not allowing like big groups of people. So we did it virtually, a virtual walk, which sounds somewhat like an oxymoron, but but it worked really, really well. People had a good time online, and we raised a significant amount of money for MHA, which is great because we rely on that. We get a little bit of money from the state, but we also rely on donations. So, but yeah, I think the thing with the library is a really good idea. And yeah, doing a GoFundMe for your space, that's also, I like that too. That way you're not necessarily burdened with everything all the expenses that come with having a meeting like that. So yeah.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, we're just getting back into the library starting tomorrow, as a matter of fact, the Morris
awesome.
County Library. I live in Nutley, and I tried that one, and I was told we can only have a meeting there quarterly, once a quarter. So we did have a meeting in September, and then I said, okay, well, I'd like to have a meeting for October, and I was denied, and they said, okay, you'd have one next year in January.
Wow.
I said, what about October's in the fourth quarter? He goes, oh, no, you can't do that. Whatever. Okay, first, whatever. I'm not going to get into that. So anyway,
Right.
we have a meeting scheduled tomorrow. We're just getting back into the library, so they're limited opening, and I'm trying to get back into this, and hopefully we're trying to schedule our November, December meetings in the library too. Usually every year we do have an event, like an anniversary event in the library. I think it was in 19, we had an event in the Verona Library, as a matter of fact. I forgot, was it like it may have been one of the anniversaries, like a Voyager anniversary, I don't recall. It was in the spring of 19 that we did something there, but usually every year we've been having events at library events. I like to get back to that, but that's sort of dependent on a number of things. I mean, they're still requiring a mask wearing in a library too, on top of everything else.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
The
have a meeting,
patrons,
I
the
gotta have
patrons are wearing masks too, Mike.
What's that?
The attendees, the patrons, visitors, they're required to wear masks.
Everybody
too?
in the library is required to wear a mask.
Okay.
And so, and that was true in Nutley too. Matter of fact, Nutley has a thing in all municipal buildings. Everybody has to wear a mask.
Our library, I was at one of our libraries today, in fact, to pick up a movie, and their staff is required, as long as you're vaccinated. The patrons are not, at least so far. That could change, before everybody had to wear a mask.
Yeah, well, now they're requiring everybody in any public building in Nutley to wear a mask. And I think that in the Morris County Library, in their library, they're requiring everybody to wear a mask. So I'm not looking forward to that part tomorrow, wearing a mask during a meeting. It's like, well, this is what's going on tomorrow. And
yeah, it seems to vary, per
really.
Yeah,
Talk about getting in your way. You know, it's like, it just
By
doesn't
me,
work.
everyone has to wear a mask. There's a sign on the door that in all municipal buildings, you have to wear a mask. They have, at the door, they have that solution that you put on your hands. And they also have free masks in case you weren't wearing a mask. You know, and they suggest that you follow social distancing. So they're very much sticklers about that here where I am. And even during our meetings or friends meeting, even though there's not that many of us there, they still feel more comfortable if you wear a mask. You know, they don't require it there, but they kind of let us know that they'd like you to do that. So.
Interesting. It seems to vary, but you know, I know Ocean County thus far is not quite as strict, but that might just be reminiscent of our folks. And you think, you know, we have a lot more seniors. We have the most senior population in all of New Jersey, but you know,
In Ocean County?
Ocean County has the most seniors population because we have all these senior developments and senior, you know, it seems like people when they retire, they go further south or they go, you know, from North Jersey. We have a lot of formerly North Jersey people that come down to Ocean County to retire. So,
Oh, okay.
in general, you know.
Okay.
So
It's in Florida. Instead of Florida, they go to Ocean County.
yeah, and then the next step is to go to Florida.
Florida. They'll even that. It's still not hot enough for them.
Yeah,
Or
it's
whatever.
like we'll move south for a little bit, and then we'll move real south.
The real south. Take another step south. We'll follow the birds.
Yeah.
Now, Michael's USS Justice is in the TOS in the original series timeline. And I know, Bob, you're in the Next Generation timeline.
Yeah, we started out our first 5 years, we were in the TOS timeline as a Constitution 2 class. In other words, the Enterprise movie version. But then, you know, and between the popularity of Next Gen and an influx of younger members, especially those that were all, you know, coming to meetings and stuff wearing Next Gen uniforms, the feeling was, hey, you know, we've been around for 5 years. Do we want to shake things up a little bit? So we actually had a vote. We actually had a choice of staying in the same era, but changing the ship design a little bit, souping it up a little bit from a Constitution to a, I don't know if it was a Belknap or what type of ship it was, but it was some special design that our then chief engineer had at that time. A member, Hadriano Sestradoio, decided to go backwards, and he wanted it to be a almost a Daedalus class, but a little bit different. We called it the popsicle class because it looked like, you know, like two sticks and one big ball to it, ping pong. But I think he just threw that in for laughs. And then of course what ended up getting the most votes was the Galaxy class, and you know, very similar to, you know, the Enterprise of Enterprise D. So we've been in Enterprise D class or Galaxy class rather for, you know, 25, no, more than 25 years now.
That's
so
what I remember.
The majority of our time has been as the Galaxy and going into the Next Gen, and we had a whole fictional storyline of how we went into the future because we didn't want to discontinue all the stuff that we had established fictionally, which we did a lot more club fiction at that time. We called it Challenger Chronicles, which was a kind of a spin-off from when we were on the Avenger, when we spun off from the Avenger. So we were many of us were the same characters, whereas some of our newer members would of course be incorporated from that the Next Gen era. So it was a nice blending, you know, of past and present, you know, new members and old members and fiction, and you know, it was a lot of fun. And we did it in our newsletter at first through logs so that people could tell the story of what was going on, but as their own character and as like themselves doing a log, and then therefore being able to explain a little bit about themselves, you know, some of their own personal history and to progress the story. So it was interesting. And it was also fun because sometimes somebody would go in a totally different direction because we never all sat down and said, well, this is what will happen at the end of the story. We just kept on going. You know, I think sometimes we never had a resolution, but we just had fun doing it.
That's what I miss from fandom, and I would like to start that up again in some form or fashion, even if we do it on Facebook or some other social media or by email. But I think that'd be a fun thing, you know, to play with the story and so forth. Anne Marie, the Britannic, what time period do they adventure in?
They are also in, or we are also in the next generation. And we don't have any fan fiction, but we do a lot of everything. Where we go, we wear our uniforms, generally speaking, not tonight, but and we have a lot more of we're revamping our website so we can get a few more columns in there. I want to do a column. I'm the counselor on the ship, and I want to do a column for, excuse me?
That's appropriate.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Yeah, mental health follows me wherever I go, but that's okay too. It's a fascinating subject, but to coin a phrase from another generation of Star Trek. But yeah, we do a lot of that. I'm relatively new to Britannic. I was on Avenger before. So I'm not, and I'm like 4 hours away. So I'm not all the way up to date on what they're doing, on what we're doing. See, I keep saying they, I'm not even into the we yet. But yeah, we, like I said, we don't do the fan fiction, but we do a lot of other where we dress in the uniforms and we get going on that. So.
I know Challenger and Britannic are in the same time period. We're in basically Picard time period. And, you know, it's too bad Wayne couldn't join us because he's very much a stickler on certain things. And, you know, we've had conversations where, well, you know, we should have been wearing this uniform at that time. And I said, Wayne, it's okay, because, you know, who's to say when those uniforms were actually phased out and we had the new uniforms that Picard is wearing, or the ones in between, which are, I think, actually the nicer of the two uniforms, where Picard had, if you've watched Picard, had a flashback to when, you know, just before he left Starfleet and had those uniforms. I think they actually look a lot more colorful. So I think the current uniforms that we see in Star Trek Picard look a lot like a cross between the original Next Gen uniforms and the Deep Space Nine uniforms. And while I like them, they look pretty basic as opposed to the ones with the different stripes and, you know, things from the flashback sequences. But, you know,
I want to mention, you know, you should mention that we shuttled off your ship, Bob.
yes.
Yeah, that should mention that. Of course, we started off your ship. At that time, were you already a Galaxy class when in '94, when the Justice was a shuttlecraft?
Let me think. We were our first 5 years. We formed in '88. I'm terrible at math, but let's say '88 to '89. To 89 to 90 to 90 to 91, 91 to 92, 92. I think we must have been Galaxy at that point.
Okay.
Probably we were, you know, we're just about. So it's interesting that we gave birth to
A TOS ship, because I guess Ed thought he wanted to go back, and we started as a TOS ship, which we've been since and haven't changed.
Many ships of that. It's interesting that the Region 7 history, and it probably would make a fascinating panel at a conference or something, but it's interesting how the movement was, because most chapters were in fact TOS, because, well, of course, originally that's what there was. We were all into the movies. We all loved the Monster Maroons and you know, the Avenger, Challenger, the Ascension, Thagard. Although I think Thagard later on became a next gen. I'm not sure what Sovereign was, if they were next gen, or I think they are now, but I think they started out as a TOS. The Adamant, I think they were TOS, but I think gradually there was a movement to go, you know, forward in time, and some ships decided to remain there. And
You know of any other ships besides ours that are TOS based still?
I think the USS New Jersey, formerly the USS Storm, I believe they are a TOS. Technically, the Avenger, while they have recently changed their chapter ship symbol to an kind of a modified ambassador ship, but they're still in that time period. They just changed ships, but they're before the Tamalad incident, because that was originally going to be their swan song, but I think the continuity, they decided to change their storyline. But they're let me see who else is classic off the top of my head.
Question, huh?
Yeah, I'd have to like look at the raw. Yeah, I know the Lincoln is not. The Lincoln is definitely a next gen.
Yeah.
I think most of the chapters are in fact next gen, but I'm sure somebody watching this will remind me of something. But
We'll get a text about it or an email.
yeah. If I had the roster right in front of me, I'm more of a visual person. But
Is there a map of like Region 7? Like, is there an imaginal map of like the space where Region 7 operates? Like,
yes,
the
there is.
planet?
On our website, is on our Facebook page, isn't there? There was one, or if there's still one, a Garden State Facebook page.
Hercules, are you talking about our galactic map where we patrol, or are you talking about literal, like little dots of like in New Jersey or in New York? Or
both, actually, because I'm going to start with us. There's enough here to keep us busy for a long time. But then later on, I'd like to meet other ships. So we'll be inviting other ones to participate in what we've built. Like today, we're going to determine whether an hour and 15 minutes is enough. That's one of the goals for today, or whether we can make it an hour and a half, or or whatever. Just any of these maps that you have, because the galactic map will help in creating the stories and giving like a continuity to them in a reality, and then the actual map will give me an idea of how to increase the circle incrementally in time.
Well, fictionally, I know the Seventh Fleet was referenced in Deep Space Nine. I don't know if that means that the Seventh Fleet, would involve. You would think Deep Space Nine would be in the Ninth Fleet, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the command post for the Ninth Fleet. So maybe they are in the Seventh Fleet, because I remember that in the Jem'Hadar War, of course, everybody was involved with the Jem'Hadar War. But I do remember the Seventh Fleet was mentioned at least more than once in an episode.
Really?
Yeah, so I'd have to, and again, I'd have to go back and see what the context of those episodes were. And that was, as much as I love Deep Space Nine, I haven't remembered every little detail, but I know it was mentioned. I know the Lexington, which was a Region 7 chapter, was also mentioned in Deep Space Nine. So that might put us somewhere in that area of space near the wormhole. I don't know. That's a very good question, and one that would make for another good panel discussion on trying to create that. Maybe that would be a great project of where fictionally, of course, those that are in like the Justice based in TOS. I remember Alex and I getting into a playful debate on, when I took over from him as RC, regional coordinator, I kind of arbitrarily changed the name of our starbase. I said, well, we're in Region 7, we're going to be Starbase 7, fictionally. And of course, Alex had a zillion reasons why that we were Starbase something else. And I'm like, yeah, but we're in Region 7, so we're going to be Starbase 7. And really at that time, more of our fiction was next gen. I shouldn't say as a region, but by and large, we were starting to go more and more next gen. So we kind of like, well, there's only one Starbase. I'm the RC, and I'm based in the next gen universe. So I'm going to unilaterally, we have to pick one. that's the one I'm picking.
Yeah, but
So
now
we're
it's,
still,
yeah, but now it goes by ship. I mean,
yeah,
Britannic is the flagship of Region 7.
right, right.
So it's sort
So,
of changed. It's no longer,
well, you know,
I mean, if
Wayne
someone else
picked up.
becomes if somebody else becomes RC, their ship becomes the flagship of the region.
Right, right. But Wayne is very happy with it being Starbase 7. And I don't think anybody challenged that afterwards. Everybody like either didn't think about it, didn't care, you know, and it was just we just remained Starbase 7 because, you know, we're region. And I think other regions are doing the same thing. Like they're basically Starbase 3, Starbase, you know, like that's where they fictionally, you know, have their administrative offices.
Okay.
So I guess Britannic kind of parks their ship when Wayne has to, you know, do office hours at the Starbase, parks inside, and you know.
When we were active as Klingons decades ago, we went by what the conventions, you know, we were meeting at. Those were the star bases. And so it was Starbase creation for the creation convention.
Oh.
So that's how we handled that back in the day. So when I'm interacting with Michael and the Justice, what I'm going to be basing the backstory on is Who Mourns for Adonis, the episode, Who Mourns for Adonis, James Blish's adaptation, which I read recently, and from a politically incorrect standpoint, it's cringeworthy reading it now. But anyway, it's an artifact of our culture. Then John Byrne did in Star Trek New Visions. He also expanded the story, what happened before and what happened after. And then Star Trek Continues did their first episode, Pilgrim of Eternity, which kind of gave a sequel to that particular story.
That's I saw that one, yeah.
I will reread those and rewatch them again, and that'll come up with a backstory. And our interaction story-wise will be what happened to Apollo. All of a sudden, Apollo disappeared from Olympus's mental map. So what happened to him? Does that sound good?
That sounds cool.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And then
just
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say on a side note, Robert Forrest, the actor, it is Robert Forrest, because I always get my Michael Forrest and my Robert Forrest, but wonderful man. We saw him a number of years ago at Shore Leave, and it was so funny because we come down to the area. There was a little food area at that time. I don't know what is there now in that hotel because they've had so many different renovations over the years, but that was sort of our staging area where we would go get a coffee and then slip downstairs to the basement area where the meeting was being held. So while we're there, and of course we're all jawing and, you know, drinking our coffee and stuff, and I see this man come out. He's in a bathrobe, like looking very like nobody was paying attention to him. And I'm the corner of my eye catch him. I'm like, that's Apollo. That's Apollo. Holy crap, you know. So, you know, I didn't want to miss an opportunity. So I said, hi, you know, I said, you're obviously slipping in here, you know, quietly, you know, even though you're a god, you know, and he laughed. And I said, if you don't have, I know you're on the schedule today to talk, but if you want to pop in, we're part of Starfleet. We're all just getting set up here to go downstairs. You want to pop in and say hi, you know, that would be great. And I never expected he would do it. I just thought it's a polite thing to do. And, you know, that he was just in his little bathrobe. And I just thought it was so funny. Well, he came down, he wasn't in his bathrobe at that time, but he came down and he just, in the middle of our little session, he popped in and just like waved. And I said, come on in, you know, and we stopped the whole meeting and, you know, and just said hi. And we wished him well at the convention. And later on, we got him to even join us for dinner and we bought him dinner. But he was just so friendly and, you know, it just a great guy and shared many stories at the dinner, not so much at the meeting. What was one of them?
When was this, Bob? When did this take place?
Shore Leave.
Shore Leave what?
Not that many years ago, 2016, 2017.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it didn't seem, course, in this pandemic, your time just seems to
Yeah.
drip away. But it was not that long ago. I wouldn't say it was 10 years ago. It was, you know, Keith was there. We all sat with him at dinner, and you know, and we treated him to dinner, but he shared so many stories with us. I think it was something like Brian Keith. I might have they were doing a Western, and I think it was Brian Keith, who many of us know as from Family Affair. But Brian Keith, you know, always had a kind of a tough guy beyond Family Affair, where he was, you know, kindly Uncle Bill. Brian Keith was also a, you know, in a lot of Westerns and stuff like that. And he did a Western. And I believe, I'm not getting my actors mixed up, but, you know, there was a fight, and Robert Forrest was the recipient of a swing that was choreographed wrong. And it was wrong on Brian Keith's part, according to Robert. So, you know, and they nearly got into an actual art, you know, debate, but then they settled it. So they went as a gentleman, you know. Right later on, Keith came up to, you know, Brian Keith, that is, and said, you know, I was wrong or something like that. So they made good. But he had, you know, he was from that era of, you know, from the 50s, 60s, 70s, you know, like old Hollywood, or what we would consider old Hollywood, not real old Hollywood of the 40s or 30s, but, you know, he had a lot of interesting stories to tell. And we were happy that sometimes some of the older actors, like Barbara Luna, are just so gracious because, you know, they're up in age, and they're just happy that people still remember them. William Windham, wonderful man, was sitting there. A lot of people didn't know who he was, and on a Friday at short leave, popping over to him, and I decided, well, no, I'm not going to open up with the traditional question of, you know, Commodore Decker and all that, and I mentioned some obscure TV pilot that he did with Donna Mills, and his eyes just lit up because the pilot didn't sell. He was a doctor. Donna Mills was, and this is back in the 70s where, you know, a female doctor wasn't there. And I remember him like coming up with his shaving cream, and he's in his underwear, and you know, and Donna Mills walks in, and he's kind of embarrassed, you know, in this pilot because it's supposed to be a comedy. And I was like, she said, well, I am a doctor, you know, so because they were supposed to be sharing quarters or something as doctors. But he said, my God, he said, I forgot that pilot, you know. So it's funny when you kind of remember, you know, you bring up things that are a little more obscure that they did. It makes them feel good, you know.
Yes. Well, we all like to be remembered for things that we did, and
yeah. And I have a memory for the weirdest things, as you know, as Anne Marie.
You really do, Bob.
Yeah, I know.
You know, I can remember stuff from you know, somebody that shows up on a commercial from 20 years ago or something, like, I remember that person, you know, like I can't remember what I ate for breakfast today or what I was supposed to, you know, do on my honey list by my wife, but you know, but I can remember stupid stuff from years gone by.
You want an answer to a trivia question? Bob's got it.
Bob, you remember the important things in life, so that's
Thank you, Mike.
You remember what counts. That's all. We're fine with that.
Yeah.
For the record.
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
Mike.
So
in the
Bob,
next gen continuity. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to go back to the Who Mourns for Adonis, and I believe that was either the first or second time you saw Chekhov, which was who was a very important character in Star Trek, even though he was not the star of it. But he was added because of the space race that we had going on, and everyone said, oh, it was a silly omission from the first season that they didn't involve a Russian on
the Russians were pissed. They had a little chat with Gene Roddenberry, or wrote him, and that led to a thing, and he was like, yeah, you're right, you know, we must change that. So, you know, unfortunately it hurt the actor who played Kevin Riley because he was replaced, but we got Pavel Chekhov, you know, as a result,
who of course first on.
Who looked like Davy Jones the first, because he looked like Davy Jones the first season with the wig.
And they did that deliberately. They were going for a connection between the Beatles or the Monkees to draw in the younger people into Star Trek. So that's why that horrible wig came around.
And for the next generation, Peter David, who was really cool to hang out with, like, I don't know, 30 years ago, which is last time I hung out with him at conventions. He was awesome. John Delancey was awesome too.
Cool.
And now my mind is, anyway, I'll bring back my mind. Peter David wrote 2 books that were sequels to Who Mourns for Adonis. He had created a character called Mark Henry, who was on the Excalibur. And he wrote a whole mess of books on the adventures of the Excalibur. New Frontiers, I think it was called.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he revealed somewhere way into the series that Mark Henry was a descendant of Apollo and Carolyn Palamas.
Oh wow!
So-
I don't think I knew that.
And
And
he had
Shelby was his XO, right?
Yes, yes. And they had 2 books that dealt with some conflict with the gods. It has been a very long time since I read those, but I'll reread them and I'll find something in there, and that'll be the plot hook that connects the Olympus story to the next generation. And so give me a week or 2 and I'll have that done.
Do you remember if they identified I know in the show they talked about the species, where they originated from? Did they ever identify that? Where Apollo originally came from, or where his other travelers came from before they came to Earth?
Peter David, I think, did that.
What's that?
He had that the gods also, like Odin and Zeus, were the same person. He did a lot of cross-cultural type of things. But again, I don't remember it. How we solved it back in the day is we created a system called Neos Olympus, which in Greek means the new Olympus. And we had the gods there, and we had all these planets that we created. We did a play-by-email game that we had running for years. So that was a place in our play-by-email game. So that's how we handled it. And
I'm
why
talking about the books you read. The books you read, was it ever discussed in there as to where they originated from before they came to Earth?
I believe Peter David touched on it, but again, I don't remember what he did.
Okay,
with
that's
it.
my question. You don't remember. Okay.
Next
That's
episode, I will definitely know the answer to that.
okay, sorry. I was just curious because that wasn't touched on in the show, and I figured it may have been touched on in the books. But
They all contradict each other too. The stories in the book, the novelization, and so forth. There's contradictions riddled throughout it, so I'm not going to worry about it.
okay.
And because Apollo, he might not have been telling the whole truth. And in Star Trek Continues, The Pilgrim from Eternity, they had him with Athena, who died there, but he made it sound like Athena was already dead when he was on the planet because she had gone into the wind with the other Olympians. So I'm not going to treat everything Apollo said as gospel truth. I'm just going to, that's what Apollo happened to say.
Right. Okay.
It's interesting to see how different productions have interpreted the mythology of the gods, and like for the Marvel universe, with how they took Thor and Odin and even changed it from the comics, where in the Thor comics the gods are the gods, but here they were treated more like this advanced kind of galactic race in the 7 realms and all that. They made it more sci-fi as opposed to mythological and magical, which was an interesting choice. I didn't particularly at the time agree with it. I just loved what Marvel had done in the comics, but after a time I kind of started to enjoy how they interpreted it as well.
I like that. I think they tried to go from a sci-fi angle instead of a fantasy angle.
Yeah.
And I think that works better in this day and age, this time. It makes more sense to the audience watching it from a sci-fi perspective rather than, really a purely fantasy, without any trying to make any kind of basis out of it. I mean, I enjoy that more. I'm not really a fantasy person. I don't like sci-fi disguised as fantasy or vice versa. Sometimes there was one movie, was it Jupiter Rising, I believe, and I thought it was sci-fi. It turned out to be a fantasy movie. It's like
Yeah, Jupiter Rising was a mishmash of it was not good.
it was not because they mishmashed sci-fi
Yeah,
instead of and it was mislabeled, and it should have been
yeah,
labeled as a fantasy movie. That's what the problem is. And I think when they did with like with Thor, they're trying to make it more of a sci-fi because I think it's more appealing to the audience, and I think that, to me,
yeah.
that's the best way to go.
Yeah, it did work. It did work.
Does
At
work.
first, I, being, I read Thor comics, and also, Hercules and the Olympian
Yeah.
gods, and even some of the Egyptian gods were frequent guest stars in the Thor storylines and the Thor comics. And of course, Hercules had his own series, and Hercules was also in his own short-lived team up superhero group called the Champions in the 70s with Hercules, the Angel, Iceman, Black Widow, and of all people, or of all beings, Ghost Rider.
Ghost Rider, yeah.
And we thought the Defenders was a mix-up of misfits. The Champions were definitely an eclectic bunch.
The Eternals also are the Greek gods disguised in science fiction. All their names, well, almost all their names, except for Druid and Sprite, come from Greek mythology. You had Athena, which is Athena. You had Icarus, which is from Icarus. You have Festus, which is from Hephaestus. Makari, which is from Mercury. So they took, and Circe, who was from Circe. They're Kirby's vision of like sci-fi gods, and he also created the Norse god forms in Marvel Comics and the Olympian when he introduced Hercules. So Kirby had this whole thing with creating pantheons. He even did it in DC with the new gods.
Yeah. I'm sure you are more familiar with the Eternals than I am, because as much as I admired Jack Kirby's layouts and stuff, I didn't always appreciate his writing. But so when I go to see Eternals, which comes up next month, it'll be a fresh approach for me because I only know a handful of things about the Eternals, and Circe being an Avenger, who kind of had a crush on Captain America first and then Black Knight for a bit. But she made for a very good Avenger in the comics, but I didn't really get to know the rest of the Eternals. So it should prove interesting, to see what they do. And I know there's a slightly different take because certain characters, they've changed the genders too and stuff. But just seeing the trailers, which almost every movie I've seen lately has had an Eternals trailer, and just seeing that scene with Angelina Jolie, who of course I've always admired and have a crush on. Even as a blonde, she looks incredible when she just comes out with her, sword and everything. She looks like she's ready to take on, anything.
Right.
So
it looks great. The reviews were kind of mixed, but from what they're describing, I think I will personally like it. And I like the characters. I followed them since they came into being. So I'm sure I'll like it, if not the first time I see it, after I've seen it a few times and found its merits. And I'm looking at the clock. We have like 7 more minutes left. And what I would like to do is I would like to see if anybody has any ideas for our next show, what they'd like the topic to be. And how about we focus on Anne-Marie McGinley and her Star Trek voyage? She teased us with some details today, so we'll get the whole story from her.
That's fine with me.
Okay, awesome.
I'm sure
So anybody have any idea for a topic?
I'm sure we could come up with something, even if we're, or do you want us to keep to a Star Trek or God kind of theme, or, like
EOS or Next Gen, or does it matter?
Yeah, for this series, we're going to stick with Star Trek, and when we have specials, we could deal with other fandoms. but I want to do a specifically Star Trek thing. And also I want to give you more freedom on Spaced Out, so you don't feel obliged, you have more variety in your choices. And later on, we'll talk about putting you on Zoom as well. So I want to give you more
That's
freedom.
cool. That will be cool. Might be scary for people because then they'll actually get to see me. But I've loved the opportunity with Spaced Out, and I've had so many. I've been blessed with so many great guests and co-hosts. Those I know, and even some people who I didn't know who turned out to be great guests. And I'm already looking forward to 2022. I'm kind of looking at people that will make for great guests. And I'm nervous for next month, Hercules, because I'm going to have my boss on.
Oh, awesome.
He's the Bond fanatic, and even if it could have worked out for October, it wouldn't have been good because he hadn't seen No Time to Die at that point. He only got to see it this past weekend. So I mean, that's what we want to talk about, of course. But he is, he is to James Bond what you are to gods, and what many of us are to Star Trek. He's quite the authority. So I can't wait to have him. But it's going to be funny to have my boss on.
And I will reread the Next Generation books on to see what Peter David did with the gods, and so I can answer Michael's question, and I can start thinking up a storyline, and I'll progress on my storyline with Michael. So we'll do that. And what would you guys like to discuss? Do you want to discuss any of the new shows? I've seen the first season of the cartoon.
Maybe Lower Decks. Yeah, maybe.
I really enjoyed that.
I did too. I didn't see them all, but I will by the time we meet next. I only missed a few, and I want to take some time out to watch
I
that.
sort of dropped it. I'm sorry. I could,
You couldn't get into
Lower Decks. Huh?
You couldn't get into it?
The dialogue is a little very fast. It's sort of like I don't know. It seemed like kids trying to be adults or something. I mean, I really enjoyed the TOS animated series, and this is like it's like night and day. It's like just too way different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just too far out there.
It's more whimsical.
It's just too much like kids. It's like kids running a starship. I mean, it's just too much. And the dialogue is like, it takes me 3 minutes to follow along. I mean, really, they are zooming along here. I just cannot follow it. It just is a struggle,
And then we have Prodigy coming up, where the kids literally are running the ship.
Right.
Yeah.
I think.
So that's even on a lower level. So I'm not even going to touch that. I mean, I just dropped this when the season started. I just stopped watching it. I watched it up to the last one, and then this one I sort of said, oh, that's it for me. I mean, I'm enjoying Picard and Discovery. Those two, I'm up to date on those two. Those are great. I'm enjoying that. But Lower Decks, I sort of I put that out the
airlock.
The
airlock.
The airlock, yeah. That's right out the airlock. Push the button, it's gone.
So how about we communicate by email or on Facebook to figure out what the topic will be next time. And if everybody can kindly share their contact information and how somebody can get in contact with their vessel as well, that would be awesome. And we'll start with our guest of honor.
Yeah, Mike Stein with Justice. My email address is justiceoc@aol.com. That's the best way to contact me. And I can go from there. And our meetup, we usually meet up at the Park West Diner on the 4th Tuesday of every night in Little Falls. So it's another way to meet with our group as well. We're meeting there this coming Tuesday at 7 p.m. at the Park West Diner.
Thank you. And Anne-Marie, our next guest of honor.
Yeah, the USS Britannic meets once a month. I believe it's the 3rd Saturday in the month at Wayne Augustin's house. And afterwards they go to a diner or a restaurant of their choice, which seems to be Wayne's choice. But that's okay. He's the CO. He can make the choice. But yeah, and if I could remember, hey, Bob, I don't know Wayne's the email address because I talked to him on Facebook. So-
Wayne Augustin, which is Wayne AUGUSTSON at gmail.com,
Right.
and ussbritannic.org, I believe it is.
.org. Yeah.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, the always honored Bob Vossler.
You can email me at beamaboard, all one word, at AOL.com. Yes, I'm the only one on the planet still using AOL. I have a Gmail account as well, which is USS Challenger CO at gmail.org, I believe. I forget my own email.
Gmail is .com.
.com. Thank you, Anne-Marie. That's how, but I do check it, folks. I actually do. But I sort of still rely on AOL because of habit.
So
And
do
of
I.
course, we're at usschallenger.org as far as our website, and we're on Facebook. And we meet on the first Sunday of the month, 1 o'clock at the Seaside Heights Community Center at 1000 Bay Boulevard in good old Seaside Heights. So.
Thank you all very much. I greatly enjoyed speaking with you, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation. Thanks to everybody who's going to check us out on YouTube when I post this sometime next week. Until next time, from all of us to all of you, joyous journeys and amazing adventures. Take care, everybody.
Long and pleasant.
Awesome. I can't do that anymore with my neuropathy.
You do this? You can do this, bro.